Welcome back to another episode of the Wrinkly Brain Podcast. This is a Smooth Brain EDH affiliated podcast where we like to goof and gaff and talk about the Commander format. I'm your host Jason, joined today by my co-host Ethan.
Hello.
And our lovely guest this evening is the former host of the Casual Ponderings podcast and new Smooth Brain EDH channel member, Seth.
Hey everyone.
Now, Seth, you're somewhat new to Commander and still getting a feel for the format, right?
Yes. Yeah, I've got a general history with it, but a very small exposure to deck variety, so I consider myself pretty new.
But since you're somewhat inexperienced with Commander, but you have a lot of experience in 60-card formats like Legacy and Modern, so we thought this would be fun for you to take a look at the Commander ban list and just talk about it. The philosophy behind it, the cards on it, and how we feel about it.
Yeah, sure.
All right, then let's just jump right into it. We're going to start off with the easy stuff here. Well, I guess first the thing we need to do is talk about the Commander philosophy. The reason behind what the ban list is, and we can justify some of the things that are on it. So, Commander is a casual format. Who would have thought, right?
Wow.
There's a couple of key lines into the Commander philosophy document, and I'll link it in the description. But it's a long document. I'm not going to go and read off the entire thing. But the important things to keep in mind with it is things can be broken. It doesn't have to. And the Commander Rules Committee believes that it is better if things are not broken. There's the introduction of Rule 0, meaning that everything on this ban list is up for your playgroup to decide, or how you choose to interact with the format. You can augment it as you see fit. And most importantly, though, there's 7 reasons or guidelines for bans. The first which is the card causes a severe resource imbalance. This could be you get way too many lands, or your opponent can't have any resources, no cards in hand, all cards in hand, whatever it would be. Alright. Allows players to win out of nowhere. Game just suddenly ends.
Yeah, there's got to be an asterisk right there already.
There's going to be an asterisk on every single one of these, but... Alright. Prevents players from contributing to the game in a meaningful way. That kind of just goes back to the resource imbalance, but it could also just be a statement of, the game just stops because of something that's in play.
Right.
Cause other players to feel that they must play certain cards even though they are also problematic. Which is a bit of a weird one.
Yeah, big old asterisk on that one too, because we'll come back to it.
Yeah, we'll come back to it. We'll come back to it.
Oh.
All right. The card could also be banned because it is very difficult for other players to interact with, especially if doing so requires dedicated, narrow responses when deck building. Again, asterisks about indestructible and exile effects and things of that matter, but,
It kind of comes back to the just play removal argument, so that's something we could touch on there.
Yeah. There's one specific card that I will rail on being on the ban list, but does fall into this category. We'll get to it in a minute. Interact poorly with the multiplayer nature of the format or the specific rules of Commander. We're going to have a very clear example of this one that I think is actually... This is a very important rule, and I like that they have this on here.
I would agree with that.
It's like, there's some things that are just unique to Commander, and it needs to be addressed. And then lastly, lead to repetitive gameplay. Sure. All right. Initial thoughts on this? Guidelines and reasoning? Makes sense to everyone? Any issues with it you see?
I would assume, I guess like a base assumption is when they're making ban decisions, they're mostly probably looking for a card to, probably represent multiple of these bullets.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to just ban it based off of one of these, I would assume, unless, the interact poorly with multiplayer nature or the format in general, that's one that I think is probably in itself fine. But I think it makes sense in a lot of these, for it being a casual format, it's understandable that this is where they would want to mold their format.
I think these are all great reasons and guidelines. It is just how they are applied and the inconsistency at times people can feel like is where there's issues that occur.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that for an onset format, these are fantastic. Like if you're having a casual mindset, all of these help to ensure the gameplay is fun and at that casual level.
Yeah, I think all of these are valid reasons to ban a card. The only one that I have a slight asterisk, like a keen asterisk on, is the causes other players to feel cards like they have to play this card even though other people are doing it.
Yeah.
Again, I'm on record. Sol Ring. I think Sol Ring falls really hard into that category, does it not?
Yeah, and then the counter argument is, but it's Commander, because it's so representative of the format's identity.
Yeah, I think that could be Sol Ring specifically could be a very long discussion, because it really must be how you interpret the rule or interpret this rule, because Sol Ring also, I don't know if it's like I necessarily feel like I must play it, but it makes deck construction that much easier. Okay, I've got my Commander easy, I've got my Sol Ring easy, so I don't feel like I have to play it. I just feel like it's an easy include. So
I personally have no issues with staples. Like, some people really don't like the concept of there being auto includes in decks. I don't care that I have 50 cards of my 100 card deck automatically accounted for. Yeah. If anything, it just makes deck building heuristics quick and easy. But
does it lead to repetitive gameplay?
Sometimes it can lead to repetitive gameplay, though. But if you still have 50 cards out of your deck, including lands that we're talking about as a flex, 50 cards that are flex slots to do what you want to do, I think you get enough diversity, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And if we're talking about like auto includes like that, we're going to talk removal. Like, if you're playing white, you're playing Source to Plowshares. And I don't think Source to Plowshares be banned for the repetitive gameplay argument. Depends on what those cards are doing as well. If it's like removal, I feel like that's much more okay with being consistent rather than like a key piece to like a game plan.
Yeah, there's things that are just they're consistency pieces and they enable basic gameplay. That's the biggest defense for Sol Ring as well, right? Like, I would say if your deck needs Sol Ring to function, that's a little bit questionable, but at the same time, yeah, it's a consistency piece.
Don't point the finger at me. I play artifacts.
You are the problem.
I have been saying that from day one. I am the fucking problem. And also, Jason, side note, we're doing an episode just on if Sol Ring should or should not be banned one day, right?
Of Sol Ring?
Yeah, let's just do the argument on Sol Ring
just
for
an
now.
active debate of just a single episode on Sol Ring?
I imagine Sol Ring discussion could also or will also fit into part 2 of this discussion. Yeah. Easily. Very easily.
2B, it will be just a Sol Ring discussion.
Yeah. We'll just make it a 3-video series and it'll be, all right, on Sol Ring.
The one ring to rule them all. The real one ring to rule them all. All right. So you take all 7 of these categories. They basically boil down to meaning cards too powerful, it's not fun, or it's a unique issue to Commander.
Yeah.
Which, fair enough. So, Seth, let's talk about what we had you do.
Yes. So, I, as a new player to the format, it was worthwhile to take a look at the ban list and just out of general curiosity to try to understand why that card would be included. Some of them make perfect sense. As someone who's played Legacy and a little bit of Vintage, the Vintage B&R makes complete sense to me, especially in a casual format. But other cards, I really felt like I maybe needed a history lesson, or maybe I'm overlooking an interaction piece that I would love an explanation for. So I've got a list.
Yeah. Well, let's quickly talk about some of the easy ones. Like, these cards are banned; they should stay banned, right? On the list, for example, we talked about like the entire Vintage B&R, the overlap there. We've got stuff like Black Lotus, all of the Power 9, right?
Yeah.
We got Balance, Channel, Flash, Library of Alexandria, Time Vault, Tinker. Like, all of these cards make sense, and we don't have to go into great depth because they're too powerful or they are just actually game breaking in the case of a card like Shahrazad.
Yes.
Yeah. I think one thing to mention there specifically is Flash was a more recent banning. That was in the past year? Which is a more recent one. I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm looking down the script a little bit more. Sorry on that one. I won't jump into too much. But Flash is... Oh, different?
Cool. For anyone who's interested, we will talk about Flash in more detail in this. We've got some historical oddballs that we want to talk about that are on the ban list. So stay tuned for that.
Yes. Yeah.
But let's just go quickly through the, what do you got here, 5 or 6 cards? 6 cards that you say make sense on the ban list.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm going to start with limited resources. Well, actually, let me back up just for 1 second. In general philosophy for Commander, I am of the opinion that most cards on the ban list can find a home in the format in a non-deserving of a ban way. So, in terms of like the Power 9, if someone owned a Mox Pearl and they were playing White Weenie in Commander and they wanted to rule 0 that, I would be like, absolutely, you're probably not going to break Mox Pearl and White Weenie. But, I mean, prove me wrong, but I will most likely incorporate Rule 0. So
Oswald Fiddlebitter, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. You chose the easiest Mox to justify as well.
Right.
Yeah, I did.
Mox Sapphire. Yeah.
I did. I definitely did. But and even Mox Sapphire, there's a home for it in a non-broken way. But it's obviously the ban list is there because it's easily broken. So, but I kind of wanted to just call that out that I don't think enough groups utilize Rule 0 enough, and there is a way you could justify it. But with that in mind, the cards that I thought make sense for the format philosophy, limited resources is a perfect example of a clear ban. It's when limited resources comes into play, each player chooses 5 lands he or she controls and sacrifices the rest. As long as there are 10 or more lands in play, players cannot play lands. So I even enjoy playing stacks pieces or just hate pieces in the format sometimes, but this brings the game to a halt. And if you're expecting, maybe to play with 3 friends, telling them that they can't play anything in their deck anymore seems kind of rude.
It's also, 1 mana?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it was like 5 or 6 mana, I could see it justified of being legal, but I could see it. I never said that was the right thing to do. I could see it more than 1 mana. That's insane.
Yeah, this is one of those cards where I think this one like perfectly exemplifies the concept of prevents players from contributing to the game in a meaningful way, while also interacting poorly with the multiplayer nature of the format.
Yeah.
It's like when you have when you're in a 1v1 and 10 lands, okay, each player gets 5 lands, sure, no problem. You can play a ramp deck to try to create a resource disparaged there. You have 7 lands and your opponent has 3. But even then, you don't need but 3 lands to operate in a lot of decks. So that's fine. But when you say, hey, everyone at this table, you either have 2 or 3 lands and we're playing Commander, you better be playing a lot of Artifact Ramp.
Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, is the right thing to do anyway.
Of course.
Biased, but yeah, it is the right thing to do.
The next one on my list is Paradox Engine. This one might be a button for a couple of people. They might disagree with the ban. I see some hands already being raised, but
Hi.
Paradox Engine for 5 mana. It's a legendary artifact. Whenever you cast a spell, untap all non-land permanents you control. It's really easy for me to understand it because I've played Magic the Gathering against Ethan before, and it can be an oppressive strategy when you have unlimited resources and you just chain and chain. It's like a Storm player's dream. It's an Artifact player's dream.
I have both of those.
Yeah.
I think this also kind of leads mostly towards it. You're not necessarily winning out of nowhere, but you're taking a really long time to build that win, and everyone else just gets to sit and watch you dirtle for 20 or 30 minutes. So I supported Paradox Engine. I'm going to call back to, I think there's a way to play it and it not be that, but very easily this card breaks things.
I think where I want to kind of build off that in Defense Paradox Engine is you don't need this card to do exactly the same thing, because I've done that. I mean, you can build a dirtle deck that just kind of spins its wheels and not get there. You just have to build a more dedicated deck for it. The issue was it was so accessible because everyone plays Artifact Ramp, everyone plays Sol Ring, everyone plays Artifact Ramp generally. that it was so easy to essentially try to do a storm deck in every deck. And it kind of inundated the format with a lot of dirtle turns that didn't go anywhere. If you built your deck right with Paradox Engine in mind, it was a powerful engine that would get you there. If you did it and you decided as a value piece, you would just sputter and not get anywhere. So that's where the issues come up. It's improper deck building for the card.
Yeah, you can improperly deck build any card to make it not be a problem. But, you know, Ethan and I, we were both Paradox Engine abusers when it was legal in the format. I had a lot of experience with Paradox Engine, and, you know, I played, in my opinion, a very fun build of it where my only draw card to really enable Paradox Engine was Temple Bell.
Oh, yeah,
So,
you did that.
Yeah, so, like, opponents, if you want to find the answer, by all means, I'll help you get there. But you better have the mana to do it. But that said, like, Paradox Engine got banned 20% because it's too powerful, and 80% because it took way too long to finish the turns. Like, every turn became multiple 5+ minute turns for a single player.
I would say more 90-10 on the two. It just made things drag out too long because people didn't build the deck with the card in mind. They just threw it in because it's a colorless value piece that did stupid things.
Yeah.
Because it's a really fun card. If you built it more as like a flash card or to way to untap your attackers with an instant speed spell, like there are ways to use it in a non-combo way. It is just so powerful for combo decks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me, like the ban of Paradox Engine reminds me of the ban of Sensei's Divining Top and Legacy.
Absolutely.
For that, like just the time it takes for turns,
Yeah.
the like poor interactions that you have to deal with. Yeah. So
I don't think
so
Sensei's Divine Top was too powerful for Legacy either. It just took too long.
Too many draws. Pace of play is way too slow. I'm going to pay one. Look at the top 3 that I've already looked at for 30 minutes. So,
yeah, I don't think Miracles was the tier 0 deck in Legacy. You know, back in the day.
True.
It was very good, but
it was very good, but not like tier 0.
Yeah, this one, I guess moving on to the next card, I actually am really interested in other people's opinion on this. Gristlebrand, it wasn't too powerful in Legacy, but card draw can be a very scary thing. Card draw with just paying life is also a scary thing. So Gristlebrand being in play and being a creature, I think like the creature aspect of it maybe makes it that much better sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Gristlebrand
it's not too hard
can
to get
scare
me.
It's not too hard to reanimate it.
Yeah,
not at all.
To get it to cheat it.
And you have double the life you would in a constructed format. So
there's the problem.
You can easily draw 35 cards on turn 2,
and then
right?
just win.
And like once you draw a third of your deck with the power level of cards in Commander, which I say is higher than Legacy because you have more cards that would be banned in Legacy that are illegal here. It is so easy to just chain together a win. That's why Ad Nauseam is such a powerful card. If you draw a third of your deck, generally you can find a win.
Yeah, for comparison, when you play CEDH, Razaketh is a very, very prominent reanimation piece, and it is an extremely powerful card because it's 2 life, sacrifice a creature to tutor for something. But CEDH is not the format where you get to build up these wide boards and sacrifice 4 or 5 creatures in a turn. So really, you're just reanimating Razaketh to tutor usually twice. And maybe you set up a combo loop where you can tutor more times than that. But finding the 2 cards you need out of 80, 90 cards in your deck versus Gristlebrand saying, well, I'll just draw you 35 of them.
You'll find a tutor in there to find the other piece that you didn't draw.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Gristlebrand seems like it's just even more powerful than what Razaketh's doing. Not to say that that Gristlebrand would completely replace Razaketh. There would still be a niche for it.
Absolutely. And also, playing as a commander is almost a downside because you can't easily reanimate it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think the way you build Gristlebrand and Commander would be to reanimate it. There's a lot of ways to discard cards easily, put in the graveyard with the tomb effects, and then how many reanimation spells do we have in this format? Too damn many.
Yeah. A lot, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I guess on this topic and having discussed it here, I want to include Yawgmoth's Bargain. I had this one as like asterisk on wanting a little bit more understanding. Yawgmoth's Bargain is, let me pause here so I can actually have the text, is 4 and 2 black for an enchantment. Skip your draw step, pay 1 life, draw a card. So I can already see the similarities between Gristlebrand of just using that life as a resource and it being problematic for combo being too powerful. But it's hard for me to look at this card and then also look at Necropotence as a Necropotence player. And is Necropotence that much worse with it not being added to your hand?
Necro's getting it at the end step is the issue.
And also the exile on discard, I believe, for reanimation or getting back from graveyard for spellcaster is a major downside that I feel is overlooked a lot of times when looking at Necro.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas getting the actual draw, because there's
immediately
when you draw, yeah.
It's also important thing when comparing back to Gristlebrand, for example. It's really relevant that Gristlebrand makes you draw cards in units of 7, right? So if you're at 32 life, you're only going to be able to draw 28 cards. Whereas if you were working with Yawgmoth's Bargain, you'd be able to draw 31 cards.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense to me. When I look at Yawgmoth's Bargain, I always maybe incorrectly think of Necropotence.
You as a Zur player are familiar with Shimmer Zur, those combos. So essentially, in that deck, it kind of is the same thing if you build your deck around it. You can find ways to play with Flash in order to take advantage of it that way. But then you're playing a higher power level, not really casual.
Yeah, Shimmer Zur is a deck that is built to abuse Necropotence. So that's it just turns Necropotence into a Yawgmoth's Bargain. That's its whole point.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Yeah, so those make sense. Trade Secrets also make sense. This is 1 and 2 blue. Target opponent draws 2 cards. Then you draw up to 4 cards. That opponent may repeat this process as many times as he or she chooses. Jason and I kind of talked about this card a little bit off air, but 2 players get to draw both of their decks, and 2 players don't. So in terms of just interactive gameplay, very unfair. And I don't think there's another card that, to this extent, that would do that, right?
Yeah, there's nothing else that comes even close to doing that. This is 3 mana, make an alliance with an opponent, each of you draw your decks, try to beat each other from there. That's just too much. Plus, one of the other things that's a little bit weird about the templating on that card is, it's the opponent gets to make the decision, right? So they could make the decision of, oh, sure, I'll just draw 2, you draw 4, we're done here. And 3 mana draw 4 is also still really powerful. People talking about Secret Rendezvous being a really good card in Commander, which I firmly disagree with, but it's 3 mana, you draw 3, I draw 3, and that's it.
Right.
Just the ability of 3 mana draw your entire deck is just absurd.
At no downside. There's no downside. No payment of life or no discarding, no anything. It's just, hey, do you want to draw your deck? Let's do it.
And this was one of the cards for the original Commander decks, correct? That's why it was printed with this formatting, because they were trying to be cheeky with Commander. And they broke the format with it. I did not know that. Yep, it's only from Commander 2011, I believe.
Yep. They made an absolutely busted card the second that they tried to build something for Commander.
That is good to know.
They've learned a lot the past 12 years of making Commander products.
That they have.
Yeah, and returning back towards creatures, Emrakul the Aeon's Torn. I'm mostly familiar with this card just because of Sneak and Show and Legacy. And maybe y'all can go into more detail of if you think this is justified or not. It does make sense to me with it just having protection from color, the Annihilator 6 can't be countered, and the extra turn. There's just so much text on this that it's a scary card. It's a scary card.
I mean, there's the same argument of easy to reanimate. So easy to discard and reanimate. Granted, if you use reanimate itself, you have to, obviously the shuffle clause, you have to find instant speed reanimation. If you build your deck around that, it's not hard. You can essentially just put one player out of the game if you put it down early enough, and there's a non-game. Also, the extra turn is kind of insane.
Do you think this is more powerful in the 99 or as a commander?
99.
99 for sure. Playing colorless only, colorless has plenty of artifact ramp. You could get there quick-ish, but you also have the target in your commander saying, I am the problem, look at me. Yeah. When you can hide it in your 99 and surprise someone.
Yeah. If you've ever seen a Kozilek deck draw their whole hand back on turn 4 because they just dumped it through colorless mana, right? That's pretty impressive, but Kozilek's 10 mana, and you're asking me to get an extra 5 mana to do this?
Yeah.
Like, that is difficult. That's probably 2 more turns, given that style of play. So, turn 6 Emrakul, I don't care, man. Like, that's not that big of a deal, honestly.
Right.
It is in the 99. But this is the hilarious thing, because if you look at the B&R announcement for Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, the RC is specifically calling out the issue with it being a commander.
Different times.
Yeah, like, this is one that I think we could maybe revisit. It's on my, like, maybe list, but I generally err on the side of caution as a legacy player as well and say, let's just not.
I don't think we need a spot where we have Sneak Attack Obeka with Emrakul putting in and then keep it around.
Yeah.
Like, not really healthy for the format. I'm cool with leaving that one where it lies.
Yeah, Shallow Grave reanimating this thing into play. Like,
oh, God.
Like, we don't need another Shuffle Titan for Get Rog combos, like...
I mean, Get Rog combo probably could use it, but, like...
Well, the big issue for me with it is if you get that in Get Rog combo, now, because they have a way of generating excess mana, right? You have now given them an infinite turn outlet, so long as they can sacrifice the Emrakul.
So we give them a definite win con?
And another one? Yeah.
Would it hurt to give them another one?
Yes.
Portray.
Because it's already a fine enough deck, and it's already frustrating enough to deal with.
It's fine.
Yeah.
They're
Either
okay.
way.
We'll give a bone every once in a while.
I do want to say the last card that I have, just individually outside of the vintage B&R, that does make sense to me is Panoptic Mirror. For 5 mana, you get an artifact with imprint, pay X and tap. You may remove an instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost X in your hand from the game. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may copy an imprinted instant or sorcery card and play the copy without paying its mana. The issue with this, as far as I'm aware, is extra turn spells, where you basically, for free, get to just take infinite turns. So, am I missing anything there? I think this makes sense just from that alone.
That is why it is banned, is the interaction with extra turns. It's not that big of a deal to get a Ponder or a Lightning Bolt or something, right? Small removal or a ramp spell. That's not a big deal. That's a nice thing, but it's not a big deal. It's extra turns that are the problem.
Yeah. CEDH, you don't think this would be just like the ultimate?
It would not. No. Play need CEDH.
Yeah, that's the funny thing.
Mana.
Is I think Panoptic Mirror is probably the weakest card on this entire list. Yeah. And the most likely one that you could bring off, talking about the ones that make sense here.
Yeah.
But I still agree that this is a play pattern that's not fun, and it really isn't something I would like in the format. It would be a benefit.
It follows the format philosophy that they're sculpting, but yeah, it doesn't seem like the most scary thing going on in the format.
No, but it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And now, if you want, we can get into the good stuff. I need some explanations for some cards.
Absolutely.
Can you explain? We'll start with maybe an easy one. Why Sway of the Stars is banned? For 8 and 2 blue, you get a sorcery. Each player shuffles his or her hands, graveyard, and permanents he or she owns into his or her library, then draws 7 cards. Each player's life total becomes 7.
I mean, there's arguments for like Worldfire is no longer on the ban list that this could also come off. So like this one is one of the ones it's like, So the argument could be it's a combo piece, right? That sets your opponents back. So you could potentially have a long combo turn, make a lot of mana, sway the stars, refill your hands. Even don't get there, you just kind of reset the game. It's almost like Shahrazad of like restarting the game in a way, which doesn't produce fun play patterns.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, Sway of the Stars is a card that probably could be unbanned. It is. I'm also of the opinion that I don't think Worldfire was a unban that added anything to the format.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think I've seen it once since it was unbanned. And I wasn't
haven't
in
seen
that
it
game.
once.
I saw it once.
Yeah.
Like,
Seth, do you know what Worldfire is?
I do not.
Let me do a little Google feel real quick. Worldfire MTG. It
I never
is.
played this card.
There's a reason why. It says exile all permanents. Exile all cards from all players' hands and graveyards. Each player's life total becomes 1.
yep.
You literally scorch everything, and you say who top decks better.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. Not fun.
This is, there's a grouping of cards that are just kind of like, and this is a phrase that the Commander RC has used multiple times before, which is invalidating the game that was played up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah, Sway of the Stars and Worldfire both invalidate the game that has been played up until this point. For the most part. Because Sway of the Stars doesn't get rid of your mana that's in your mana pool. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get rid of the resources in your hand, it gives you more. So there is still more game to be played with Sway of the Stars. It's also 10 mana, so like...
Well, it does shuffle your hand away.
Yeah, no, but it gives you a new one.
Yeah, fair.
Worldfire does just invalidate the game. Everything is now a top deck war. The only reason that it is not invalidating, so to speak, is because, and this is a funny combo that people talk about, is like, oh, well, I can just bring back my Obsidat, and now I drain everyone for 2, and that's how I win the game, right? Like, this is... Let's not talk about the I have something randomly sitting in exile waiting to go, and that's the game we're playing from here. Joyra players, original Joyra, might I add, you can eat your heart out, but like, this is, not exactly the most fun play experience for people. That's why I didn't really care that Worldfire was banned or unbanned, because I just never want to see it at my tables.
Yeah.
And Sway of the Stars falls directly in that category as well.
I don't know. I guess I don't really find the issue with the hard reset. It's at least not like one-sided. Mm-hmm. Even I know that land destruction has been heavily policed in the format and sees very little play. I think Sway of the Stars would likely be potentially in that category where people probably just out of kindness would not play the card. But also it doesn't. Everybody's life total becomes 7. We're hard restarting. I can see it maybe being powerful compared with certain commanders, but for the most part, like a hard... I guess just from the reset itself, I don't see a problem with that. So...
Yeah. No, I understand that. That's about all I got for it on that. Like, yeah, you pretty much hit it. Like, it's not the worst thing to reset, but yeah, it just doesn't feel great.
Okay. Yeah. If you want to start a commander game at 7, you can just start a commander game at 7.
That's true. Okay, so that one was not the easiest one. The search will continue here. What about Gifts Ungiven? Now, I know about Gifts Ungiven. I've played against Modern Storm.
Me.
I've attempted to play Modern Storm and absolutely hated the experience.
I remember that.
Why is Gifts Ungiven okay in Modern and not okay in Commander?
With Intuition legal, it's a good question. Honestly, I don't understand why Intuition is legal, because it does the exact same thing. You just put one less card in your hand.
And it's one less mana, right?
It is 3 mana, but they're both instant speed. Mm-hmm. And they both tutor out multiple cards, and opponent chooses one at least to go to your hand, and the other go to your graveyard. Mm-hmm. What is the difference? I don't understand. I own Intuition. If it's banned, that's fine. I'll sell it for half of what I paid for it. It's just, it doesn't make sense.
You see, Ethan, the difference is Intuition is better.
Yes.
It's an old card.
Yes. It is not $2. It is, I'll look on Twitter, see how much I paid for it.
I don't know, but it's like $80 or $90 now, wasn't it? Or over 100.
I paid about, I thought something like a 130 at one point, but that could have been like near mint. I did not pay near mint price for mine.
Whatever, man. The important thing is, Intuition and Gifts Ungiven being cards that Gifts Ungiven gets 4 cards, whereas Intuition gets 3 cards. Either way, 2 of them are going to the graveyard, and either 1 or 2 are going to your hand. There's very small differences in the nuance of how these cards play. For example, I believe the way Intuition is worded, it requires you to get 3 cards. So if you have 2 cards in your deck, nice, you can't cast Intuition, whereas Gifts Ungiven lets you get up to 4 cards, which means you can. not that that really matters if you have 2 cards in your deck. Why do we care? Like,
It might be. I mean, I just don't see the issue with it being the exact same like idea. Maybe the extra combo piece, because a lot of people who are playing Intuition and would be playing Gifts and Given are just throwing cards into their graveyard that no matter what, we're going to be getting them back, right?
Yeah,
So
the extra card doesn't matter.
You make a pile that wins you the game no matter what.
The typical pile would be LED, Unrolled Breach, LED, Sabine's Reclamation, and Unrolled Breach, generally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because then you get a Sabine's Reclamation back, the things if you don't get... If it's in your hand, LED lets you crack back and get Flash with Sabine's Reclamation. If you Unroll Breach, then you just win.
So my question is, if you paid 1 more mana, what 4th card would you choose?
You are already dead.
The 4th card I would get is Brain Freeze.
Honestly, that's the correct answer. I would just meme, but if you're trying to play efficiently, then yes, Brain Freeze, because then you don't have to intuition again from your graveyard.
Yeah, exactly. It would make that combo even easier to do, but that's already a relatively easy 1-card combo that we're working with anyway. If you want to throw in an extra tutor for that combo, I really don't care that much. That's fine by me.
Yeah.
Because it's also 4 mana, which is a lot when you get to the higher end of the scale. They're the same. Like, am I missing something? They are the exact same card, except for Gifts and Giving into 1 extra card, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
The mana costs 1 more, right? It's 4 mana versus 3 mana.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This one stumps me. I'll be honest.
I'm pro unbanning Gifts Ungiven. There's maybe I would also accept an argument of, well, you should just ban Intuition, but I think both cards are fine.
Yeah,
I think
that would be interesting. Does Intuition see much play outside of CEDH?
No. That's the thing. It's mostly a CEDH card, likely due to its price point to an extent.
Yeah.
Gifts and Given is a lot more accessible. It's had a spell book printing. It's been printed in Modern Masters. It got printing in the original one of the Kamigawa sets back in the day. There's probably another printing I'm missing. So it's been printed a lot more than Intuition has.
I would be more on the side of unbanning than banning, and allowing again your playgroup to police. But
Rule 0.
Certainly.
All right.
Because tutors are cringe. We don't play those, right?
These are just tutors. Why would we play these?
I mean, I don't know.
Mr. Zer player over there?
I play Zer, so...
It's you.
I am the problem.
You are the asshole.
Sir, you might need to hear that you are, in fact, cringe.
I was born this way, guys.
He's not playing Stinging Study in his deck. That's the real problem.
So I've got another one, and I had a brief pause from the format, so I ended up missing this band announcement, and I also know I'm really going to get an interaction out of someone in this podcast. Why was Golos banned? And let me read the card. Golos, Tireless Pilgrim. For 5 mana, you get a legendary artifact creature, Scout. It's a 3/5. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a land card, put that card into the battlefield tapped, then shuffle, and then you can pay 2 and Wooburg, exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn without playing their mana cost. What happened while I was gone?
Sit down, bucko. Let's fucking talk. So, context. I love Golos in everything but Commander. It is a fantastic card. It's super fun in Cube. I played it in Legacy to go get my Cloud Post and Glimmer Post and did wacky shenanigans with Caracas. I love this card and everything but Commander. Fuck this card in Commander.
Really? I was not expecting that.
Fuck this card, dude. It is so annoying, okay? So, one, Caracas is obviously banned, which that's one we probably should have added to your Make Sense card.
It's on... Is that Vintage B&R?
It's illegal in Legacy. Why would we ban a Vintage?
Restricted
Is it restricted in Vintage?
Probably not. Well, either way, moving on.
Okay, so even though you can't just balance Golos repeatedly, it is so homogenistic to the format. It is ridiculous. It is so easy to cast because 1, 5-mana Commander is nothing, right? Because it's a slower format. So you go tutor out whatever you want, and then it just makes the games a sludge. And it was okay. I want to build this cool deck. Okay, what's the best commander for it? This cool one or Golos? And 99% of the time it was Golos. So everyone has built Golos for everything. It was a great lands commander because it tutor out lands and you use those lands to get more things. Sure, but it just did everything better than everything else. And it's so fucking dumb. There were so many times I wanted to be like, oh, 5-color lands, let's do it. And then I would sit down and like, well, I'd be playing Golos. And I would close the tab and do something else.
So you think if Golos is in the format, if you're playing 5-color, you have to choose Golos?
Why would you play anything else? Why would you play anything else other than Golos when there's 5 colors?
Yeah. So Golos was an extreme homogenizer. To give you an idea, Golos was the most popular commander, which is saying something because Atraxa has held that for forever.
Yeah.
Golos took usurped Atraxa, was the single most popular commander. Anything you built with Golos worked, because just ETB, go find any land you cared for, was good enough. The other thing about it is, so going back into this ban list, alright, Golos has an argument on almost every single one of these points, but the ones that are the most important are, this was an extremely repetitive gameplay, because you cannot keep Golos down. They always find the mana to cast themselves the next Golos, right?
It tutors the command attacks away, essentially.
Yes. Answering Golos just propelled the Golos player ahead.
Yeah.
That sucks. So now I have to play very narrow answers to deal with this card. So I have to play Null Rod. I have to play whatever I can to stop activated abilities specifically, or I have to play Mass Land Destruction to slow down the Golos player. Which, by the way, one of their most commonly tutored lands was an indestructible one that filtered to 5 mana. So that So that doesn't even work that well. Right? Prevents players from contributing to the game in a meaningful way. Well, now everything becomes about the Golos once it hits play.
Yeah.
So, as weird as it is, I'm in full support of Golos ban.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised. This one surprised me. I'm not gonna lie. I guess the arguments make sense. It makes sense that it was banned. But I really thought I was going to be hearing Ethan be like, "Bring me my baby back."
No, Golos can stay on the fucking ban list. I don't.
That's awesome.
No, I'm so like in Legacy. If Legacy was still something we could play, Seth, I would be playing this every week, and you know that. I had too much fun. I had too much fun playing 3 in the main deck, 1 in the Karn board. You know, I love this guy in constructed formats. I tried it in Eldrazi-tron. Did not work there. I would love to play this in Cube. It's a fun, niche way to kind of spice things up. Commander, I mean, it just did everything. Like, why would you play a 5-color blink commander over Golos, right? There's ETB, you blink. You can just blink it and get all your lands out. Like, it was it's so dumb. And, like, you could do that with a Mana Vault and Ancient Tomb on turn 2. All right.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Colorless commanders in 5 colors is just dumb. The whole point of playing 5 color is the restriction. That's one reason why Kinrith...
To make it to where you're not really reliably casting it on turn 5.
Like, there was arguments about Kinrith. Yeah, Kinrith, after Golos got banned, was like, well, why not play Kinrith? Kinrith is a lot more niche, and it does a lot of stuff, but Golos did everything. And it was more restricted on the activated abilities, more so, because it took a lot more color. There's arguments for that. But the casting cost is the restriction there. And Golos did not have that.
Yep.
Yeah. Is Najeela 5-color? Isn't she?
Yes.
That might be the one. Would you play Golos Warriors? That's like the one 5-color deck where you're like, okay, you play Najeela. Right?
Yeah, unless there's very niche scenarios of I want to play specifically. And granted, when we're talking like CEDH sphere of things specifically, then yeah, there's an argument to playing Najeela over playing Golos, because Golos is 5 mana. That can be an actual issue there.
Yeah.
And what it puts into play is not necessarily what wins you the game, but it's very valuable.
Yeah.
Najeela would still probably be the more preferred 5-color commander for CEDH. And that's just because she combos with everything, and it's very easy to have backup combos and do everything that you want to do in that deck. You can force through wins too easily.
Right. Before moving on to the next card, I did want to bring up, you mentioned Karakas with the interaction with Golos and Legacy. Fun times. And you're right, it is and should have been addressed on this is very obvious for banned in the format. But at one point in time, and well, it's because there shouldn't be a land that just says you can't play your commander, right?
Exactly.
Your commander tax becomes way high, way high. But
well, you probably just send your commander to your hand, but
you could, but yeah, for any kind of abusing ETB stuff. But you're saying going. Let me back up. You're saying bouncing their commander to their hand. Yes, you could also bounce your own and do shenanigans like with Golos. But like, I just thought that there would be one scenario. I'm not calling for a Crocus unban. Do not take this way, but I'm trying also to stay strong on my there's room for cards off the ban list if you due to rule
Not
0.
this one.
Nope.
Sorry,
In
buddy.
mono white, you don't think there's a world where some kid can
Nope.
politically use Crocus?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. So
It,
long
it
as
creates unfun play patterns and repetitive play patterns.
Yeah.
I play my commander. I can't play my commander. When the whole point of playing commander is to play your commander, and you restrict someone on that core gameplay element, it's one reason why Drannith Magistrate is such a big hot button topic on and off on Magic Twitter for the past year and a half.
Yep.
Is because people want to play their commander. Drannith Magistrate says no, and people don't like that.
Right. White would just be, it would go from like the worst color to like one of the best colors if you had access to Crocus, because you would just be abusing it.
also crop rotation would just become one of the best
Oh,
cards in the format too.
yeah. Yes, it would.
Yeah, like no, just
A man
Don't.
can dream. A man can dream mono white being good.
well, kill that one. That one's not allowed.
Said if you want Mono White to be good, play Adeline. There's your answer.
Adeline is pretty hot. That's a fun deck. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Mana Tithe goes in that deck.
Oh,
it does.
it goes in any white deck. What are you talking about? I play
So
Mana
fun.
Tithe too much.
So moving on from trying to justify Caracas anywhere, what about Lutri? I do remember Lutri, and this is one of the when companions just got introduced. Lutri the Spellcaster is 1 in hybrid blue-red, legendary creature elemental otter, which companion each non-land card in your starting deck has a different name. It's natural for the format. Flash, when Lutri the Spellcaster spell chaser enters the battlefield, if you cast it, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets of the copy. Why? I mean, do you think this actually deserves a spot on the ban list?
Ooh, pick me.
Okay, Jason?
Absolutely, 100% deserves it.
I concur completely.
Now, let me preface this. If this card was unbanned, it would not be broken. It would cause not very many problems. But here's the thing. We are all signing up to play Commander. We are all signing up to play the same game with the same restrictions and the same problems. Just because you are in blue-red does not mean you should be rewarded by having a free card in your opening hand. I don't care about the companion tax. I understand. We are fundamentally not playing the same game at that point. And it's a very similar game, but we did not sign up for the same game. It is a unique problem to Commander, but Lutri is unfair for the other 3 players at this table.
Because automatically for free you get 101 cards versus 100.
Correct.
What?
And one of those is in your opening hand.
Yes, and I'm largely a command. Okay, in constructed formats, I am a companion hater. In Commander, I like companions because it asks you to make a significant deck building restriction for you to be able to play that companion. If you're going to play with Umori or Kahira, even if Kahira is kind of like a free include in your cat decks, I mean, it still means you're not playing other cards like Esper Sentinel. It's not truly free. So, Lutri, on the other hand, just is a free card. And it literally asks nothing. The only blue-red decks that can't play this card are decks that are playing things like Persistent Petitioners.
Right.
So, they're the only ones who are cut off from Lutri. That's just not a fair game for everyone else. That you just, because of the rules of Commander, get to have an extra card. And blue-red also doesn't need the help, so,
That's fair. That's fair. Well,
The other thing to consider with Lutri is it's also a combo piece with, very common combo pieces. So, it combos with Twin Flame and Heat Shimmer. Correct? To an extent.
I don't remember these.
No,
are
that's
very-
legendary technically, so it wouldn't.
Yeah, you can get Infinite Magecraft if you want to do that, but, yeah.
Yeah, very easy to get infinite cast, though.
I do find it surprising with the way that they designed the card, because they had to have had Commander in mind when they made this, because for constructed competitive, people are not playing
okay,
Lutri, right? I mean, there's
nobody plays Lutri unless you're Squad Chief. You're not playing. Nobody's playing Lutri.
Spicy vintage lists.
Yeah. But the interesting thing, though, is so the Commander RC actually does get some previews of cards coming up and how they might impact. They actually have a say in the design process sometimes. Lutri was one of the cards that was brought to their attention, which is why it received a day 0 ban. Because they knew about it, and they knew they had already discussed the ban discussion before before anybody else had seen the card. They knew that this card could not exist in the Commander format, and I fundamentally agree with them.
Do you think that if WotC had introduced a full series of cards that were free, that the rules committee would have just blanket banned them all? But if there were all the dual colors for free, with the restriction of each non-land card in your starting deck has to be.
I would say yes, because then you're also making monocolor decks worse just by having those exist.
Yeah.
And why that's also just going against the fundamental rule of Commanders. The idea, spirit of the format is the individuality, and now you're making a homogenous deck choice. It's the same argument with Golos. It is homogenous. You just do that with everything. It's like, okay, cool, I just put this in.
Yeah, from a ban decision, I get that. From a design decision from WotC, I just don't understand where this card has a home.
Well, they came out
maybe draft
after draft, essentially draft and constructed, which constructed never really going to play, but draft it's fun and spicy. They came out and essentially said after they announced, it's like, look, we don't design every card for Commander.
Yeah,
this is like their card saying, look, guys, we don't, we promise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is just a. I can't remember the exact justification that Wizards had for printing this card, but basically the statement of it poorly interacting with one format was not a justification enough for them to not try it for Standard and for drafting.
I don't think they will ever convince a Standard format to play one-ofs.
No, well, this is the other thing, though. It's not about convincing the whole format. We come at this from a very spiky mentality.
Yeah.
This is, I am Johnny player. I really just enjoy the deck building challenge that came with this card. I want to play with this fun card, and people do it. That's why I mentioned a streamer named Squat Chief. He plays Lutri in like every format.
Really?
And he streams it. So like,
okay, that guy he's living in a fantastic world. I just want to put that out there. Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, oh, that's sick. You're doing that. That's the exact reason they printed this card, is for that reaction. Mm-hmm. So it was worth it to print Lutri. It's just unfortunate for Commander players that you don't get to play it. Get over it, man. Like,
there's also Cube. We have to remember, there's also Cube that you could potentially play this card a lot in.
But that's the draft format, right?
Where it's draft, but like,
it makes sense. It makes sense in Commander, and it makes sense in draft from like the already established formats. And with it being banned, I get it. With it being unfair to all other colors, but from a design perspective, I don't know. It seems interesting.
I mean, in a normal booster draft, like, you could have multiples of the same card if you draft multiple. I draft
sealed,
multiple.
Sealed could be
sealed. You could. So
a
like,
lot easier to get away with.
It's a deck building restriction on that. And Cube, it's kind of also a freebie. It is unless you build your cube to have multiples. Generally, Cube is one ofs. It is a free there, but also it's fun. I'm okay with it being a cube.
Yeah,
I like multiples in cubes. People need to put more multiples in cubes.
Hot take. We're not a cube podcast, Jason. Mm-hmm. We'll start that next year.
We could be though. We could be. Smooth Brain Cube. Okay.
We'll get there.
The next card on my list is Primeval Titan. For 4 and 2 green, you get a creature giant. It's a 6/6 with trample. Whenever Primetime enters the battlefield or attacks, you may search your library for up to 2 land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Why is this banned? I genuinely do not I know that there's got to be an interaction I'm missing. I genuinely do not understand why this is banned.
The game revolves around the card when it hits the table.
Yeah.
That's genuinely what it is. Everyone's going to find ways to copy it or steal it or clone it in every way possible, to where it turns into a game about Primeval Titans, because the ramp you get off of it is so insane. You can get any land, and so you could get land-based combos. Like, there's just so much you can do with it, and this was banned before my time, and I fully support the banning.
I'm somebody who really, really supported this ban. I'm now a little more coin flippy on it. I wouldn't mind actually experimenting with this in some normal and high power games. I will say that this is a menace for low power. Like,
that makes sense.
Like, this is absolutely like one of the best spells you could be casting. Every green deck gets to have it, and it would be genuinely one of, if not the best green 6-drop that you can play.
Yeah,
like,
what you got else? Like Rampaging Baloths is his competition.
Well, at least in terms of talking about creatures, right? We can argue about where Rishkar's expertise and similar spells fall, but like, the important thing is that ramp is very valuable. The combos that come with it. I am also somebody who has played a fair bit of Modern, and I hate playing against Amulet Titan with a burning passion. So, like, I'm trying to not let my judgment cloud too much of this, but that is part of the reason why I support keeping that card banned, is because I know what combos it can do, what dumb things it will be able to do, and how homogenizing the gameplay experience can become once you start introducing that. Unfortunately, I am no longer fully convinced that that is absolutely worthy of a ban, though.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting, and you said this just a few minutes ago about we're coming from this from a spiky perspective. I've just seen so many powerful things in non-CDH, and a creature that lets someone ramp. I guess, yeah, the land combos are good. Maybe if this was basic lands, there'd be an even greater argument for it to be off. But I'm not convinced that the land ramp is scary enough outside of the combo discussion. Like, if you're just the resource of they get the 2 extra land cards is so powerful, we got to ban this. I couldn't agree with that. But
it's not just 2 lands, is it? Because then you get 2 every turn. And let's say you get them down, you're in green, you can ramp fast.
This is very easy to remove, though. I mean, in deck building construction, like
I guess it's another thing. I don't like the argument of just play removal 5-head. I don't like that argument because it never goes anywhere.
But it's not a just play removal. It's a, there are 4 players in the game, and there's like general ideas for deck construction outside of like what your commander's trying to do. Like, you play a certain amount of artifacts, generally to ramp naturally. You play a certain amount of removal, generally to keep cards in check. I think if in a 4-player game, 3 players in a matter of turns would find an answer to a prime time.
In a matter of turns, it turns into, if you let it go one turn rotation, that's 4 lands up compared to everyone having 0. So that if you get that on turn 4 or turn 5, you're double everyone else's lands, which can be game ending in Commander.
Yeah.
There's still just, I don't know.
There's a lot of things that can interact with this that just interact poorly. I will also say that I would hate to do it, but now if you introduce Primeval Titan into the mix, there's, at least on the casual side of things, there's now an argument for banning Field of the Dead then, because that's an interaction that I really don't want to see every single game.
It would be every single game if that's the case.
That's a good point. That's a good point, too.
And green creature tutors are so good that you're going to be able to find prime time every game if you play it. And that's, again, if you're pushing it from the spiky perspective, if you're pushing it from the unspiky perspective, even then, it's still able to do a lot. It finds you a lot of good utility lands that you may need. Like, again, as much as I don't like it. Caracas, great one.
Exactly.
But honestly, like, Reliquary Tower, right? Like, in casual games, do we need the green player to have access to Reliquary Tower every single game when they're drawing a million cards as is?
Well, we naturally know the first card, or one of the 2 cards we would be getting, would be Bajuka Bog, so that we could bog Ethan.
Exactly.
I will log out this fucking call right now. You shit. But I mean, you're not wrong. Like, it turns into homogeneous repetitive gameplay as well.
Yeah.
The game starts revolving around it. And I think there's just some. I think it's safer to leave on the ban list. I am kind of more with Jason a little bit like testing it, but I don't see much good of it coming off the ban list.
In the pods that go ahead, Jason.
I would also add to this one of the other issues for it, and I was thinking like CDH plays crop rotation, right? It's it's not in every CDH deck, but it's a relatively popular card, and the main reason for it is Gaia's Cradle. I would absolutely make a 1-for-1 trade here. Is that if you unbanned Primeval Titan, you have to ban Gaia's Cradle.
I'm okay with that. One's cheaper. One you can reprint. I'm cool with that.
Yeah. I will just say, in the groups that I've played with, like, prime time wouldn't be a problem.
But again, that's also your scope. The
No,
groups you haven't played with.
Yeah,
that's the issue.
I do understand that, and this is where that rule 0 comes in. Like, I would love to play against Primetime, because someone in the YouTube comments is going to be like, dude, you're an idiot. Let me explain this interaction of why Primetime is just absolutely broken, and I deserve to get flamed in the comments for that. But I do know that this would be one of the first rule 0s, like, do it to me, please. Like, I need to play against this to understand.
No, I can make that happen.
Let's do it, man. Let me play Leovold, you play Primetime, and we'll just go to town.
That one makes sense on the ban list. You get that up there.
I cannot wait to discuss. Okay, yes. Leovold makes sense, but part 2 of this banter, I'm going to have a discussion.
All right. Let's get on to the next one. We're running a little long here. Let's go.
Next card, I think, makes probably needs a little bit of justification. I'm missing an interaction, is Recurring Nightmare. For 2 and a black, you get an enchantment, sacrifice a creature, return Recurring Nightmare to its owner's hand, put target creature card from your graveyard into play. Play this ability as a sorcery. I'm overlooking something for sure.
All right, I can give you the actual reason this card is banned, which is that 7th point of leads to repetitive gameplay was pretty much added to the list because of Recurring Nightmare. Recurring Nightmare was a card where when they were testing it, and again, we're talking like 2008, 2010 Magic here, where a Recurring Nightmare came down, and the rest of the gameplay that the player who was playing Recurring Nightmare, the only spell they cast for the rest of the game was Recurring Nightmare. And they felt that that was just homogenistic gameplay style. It wasn't very fun for anyone involved. I agree that would get old fast, but at the same time,
There's more efficient reanimation spells.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's the worst. I think you could probably unban this, or at least test it. It is one of those ones where I feel like if anything, I was sitting here like, maybe this is okay. This is probably the card I could be the most wrong about.
Yeah.
Is there like a specific like reanimation target that they're? I mean, I
Nope.
guess I just.
I mean, back in the day, it was Grave Titan, but
Yeah, I don't know.
no, there's nothing in particular that's, again, not from the spiky perspective. There was no issue. I will say that the current day one problem would be Protean Hulk.
Yeah, that's a real. Oh.
Yeah, this card's relationship with Protean Hulk would be problematic. We'll get to that in the next episode, but why was Protean Hulk ever unbanned? I will never understand. Anyway.
Okay, I was hoping there would be like a very clear reason that Recurring Nightmare was banned, but that's an interesting choice.
I mean, it's repetitive gameplay. That's the main reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one I have is Sundering Titan. For 8 mana, you get an artifact creature Golem. When Sundering Titan enters the battlefield or leaves the battlefield, choose a land of each basic land type, then destroy those lands. It's also a 7/10. I just want to say, with this card specifically, land destruction is heavily policed in the format, and with that in mind, I thought Sundering Titan would be fine. Am I missing an interaction, or is there a reason why specifically it would be banned?
Is enter and leaves, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, enter and leaves.
So blink, you can just blink it 2 or 3 times to blow up the entire board. And if you build your deck correctly with non-basic lands that don't have basic land types, you can punish monocolored or multicolored lands that just have basic land types just because they're playing that. So it's a resource imbalance is what it leads to. And there's very easy ways to either sacrifice and get artifacts back. You have Goblin Welder effects to do that very easily. Very easy ways to blink creatures. It's just, there's no net positive to having it in the format, especially because it's a colorless card. There is no restriction on anyone to play it. It goes in every deck. Why would you not play it in a monocolored deck to just dick on 5-color decks?
Well, all right, so I will say that I think if you did unban this card, it would see play in less than 1% of decks.
Yeah.
I think it would, see a severe spike early on, and then it would be policed out of the format, right?
Yeah.
This card is not fun. I don't think that this is, or at least playing against this card is not fun. Playing this card is very fun. But playing against this card is a net negative for the whole table. This is a big firm. It boiled down to, is the card too powerful, not fun, or a unique issue to Commander? This is just not fun. That said, it's Sway of the Stars. It's World Fire to me. You could unban this card, and I would be like, sure, there's probably a way somebody could play this, and it'd be a fun way of playing, but I don't want to search for those games.
Yeah. I think the problem that I'm having too is I don't even try. I just play fair Magic generally. I do not. You guys are probably different. I don't read a card and be like, oh man, I got to break this. How do I break this? So I have a very innocent approach to reading some of these cards. So,
right. Even if I like playing fair Magic more than, but I'll still read a card and go, okay, how is it broken? How do I need to interact with it? Because it's like that's step one is how is it broken? Step two is how do I stop it from being broken?
The next card on my list is Upheaval. 4 and 2 blue. You get a sorcery. Return all permanents to their owner's hands. I guess we've kind of already addressed this in another card, and my stance is still kind of the same. I'm generally okay with a reset.
It's not a reset, though.
Yeah.
This is a I win the game card because it is a ritual to artifacts decks. You play your Soul Rings and Oryx that are mana positive. You say, cool, I'll produce 20 mana off of Urza. Upheaval. Bounce everything. Play it all again. Fill that board, and everyone else is reset except for yourself.
Just like Paradoxical Storm and all that.
Yeah.
Yep. This like literally ties into literally what we were just saying of, I don't know how to, I'm not looking to break these cards. And
this, you've played Cube before. Have you never watched Vintage Cube? It's a very common play pattern in Vintage Cube.
I have played Cube, but that's okay. That makes sense. That makes more sense.
Moving on.
Yeah. Like,
thanks for the explanation.
If I have the explanation, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, Upheaval needs to stay banned. Sorry.
The one sits in the naughty corner where it belongs for the rest of the time.
It's really interesting to note that a lot of these cards are being broken by artifacts. And again, I'd like to say, Ethan, you are the problem.
I am the problem.
So here's the other important thing, though. It's not just artifacts, it's ramp.
Yeah.
Ramp is the biggest issue with a lot of these cards, right? Because we're talking, what's the average mana value of the cards we're looking at here? Like 6 or 7?
Yeah, it's high.
Like, the cheapest spells we've looked at are Recurring Nightmare and Lutri. And then we're hitting Sway of the Stars at 10 mana. We're hitting Upheaval at, 8 or 6? I can't remember.
Sundering Titan 8.
Yeah, Sundering Titan's an 8. Ramp is the thing, and again, bygone of a different era of how ramp worked. Games were extremely long and very grindy and not that many answers. You can see why a lot of these cards, because these are all very old bans, with the exception of Lutri and Golos.
Well, that's my list. I mean,
I thought there was one more that we skipped. Yeah, we skipped one, Seth. Can you read?
Oh
Seth?
my gosh, I cannot read. I cannot
How
read.
dare you.
I'm learning though. I'm learning. So my last card on my list is Sylvan Primordial. For 5 and 2 green, you get a creature avatar. It's a 6/8 with reach. When Sylvan Primordial enters the battlefield, for each opponent, destroy target non-creature permanent that player controls. For each permanent destroyed this way, search your library for a forest card and put that card onto the battlefield tapped and shuffle your library. I'm guessing y'all's arguments are going to be Sundering Titan?
It's very similar, but worse.
It's non-land permanent, right? Or sorry, non-creature permanent, so you have more options of what you can hit. It's actually, like, Sylvan Primordial's weird because it kind of takes the best and worst elements of Sundering Titan and Primeval Titan and then makes them keys.
Yeah.
Like, it expands on what you can hit, which is very relevant. This is a fucking awful card to play against, because once it starts... And really the card that got Sylvan Primordial banned is Deadeye Navigator. When you can Soul Bond to this, is Deadeye Navigator, 6 mana, 5/5, Soul Bond. When it enters the battlefield, you can Soul Bond with something, and each of those creatures pay 2 mana to flicker this thing. Right?
Gross.
Right. And that just meant that you could just ramp like crazy, go destroy a whole bunch of permanents, right? So Sylvan Primordial's issue is flicker. Weirdly enough, this one probably could be unbanned, although I just hate it with the Burning Passion. I've played against it. I hated it with the Burning Passion.
I don't think it'd be unbanned. I think that it just... What benefit does it bring the format?
For each permanent destroyed this way is based on all of y'all's points. I'm going to destroy a land and then go get 3 lands, or not. Well, I guess I could just destroy land and go get 3. That's that is definitely a huge swing in resources. So with the format philosophy, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Within the current philosophy, it makes sense why Sylvan Primordial's banned. I don't know if it should stay banned, but
I think it stays there. In my opinion, I don't think it's ever coming off.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you know, when you're talking about 7-drop green creatures to compete with, we're often talking about it's competing with Avenger of Zendikar. Honestly, I don't know which of those two is more powerful. Sylvan Primordial is probably the more powerful of the two.
I would say Sylvan Primordial ends more games, but not in a good resolution.
Right.
I think it might end to more people scooping out of frustration and non-enjoyment than actually being killed by a creature that ends the game itself.
It is not a fun card.
No.
Well, to be against it. Again, casting it. Excellent.
One person is having fun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Slam your dick on the table and make people look at it. But not really what the gameplay I want to bring in.
Yeah. All right. Well, unless I have missed one, again, that is my list of cards that I wanted to get some clarity on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for doing that. Like, some of these cards we agree with, some of the cards we don't agree with. It's different. It's all different perspective. Again, we take a more spiky perspective at viewing the ban list. So for us, power level is one of the more relevant things to look at.
Yeah.
But there's other elements like how boring and repetitive it is, how long the turns take, things like that, that's actually relevant to look at. That's why Yorion's banned in Modern, is just because of how long it made turns take.
But to your point, there's not really a great resource for all, unless I'm missing something, for power level in general, right? So how are you expecting... because we've got a good suggestion of like these cards we recommend you not play, but we don't have a good recommendation for deck construction for casual, mid power, high power CDH, right? So
we talked about, like, we did lay out our power level rating that we do on the podcast. We've done that before, right?
I would say like in the earlier episodes, maybe like episode 10 latest.
Yeah,
it's been like it's been like close to a year probably since we did that episode.
It's been probably over a year.
This may be off topic, but I think that's something that the format could benefit from, like an official recommendation for power level. That way, because people don't deviate. We've talked about this. But people don't incorporate Rule 0. They just say, these are banned. I'm not doing anything outside of these rules. If there was a power level establishment of like, we recommend like these ideas or whatever, then it'd be a lot easier to show up to a table, and instead of someone saying my deck is a 7, they'd be like, hey, I'm actually playing mid to low to whatever. So
Rule 0 conversations have evolved as well, because like my Rule 0 conversation whenever I'm at a table is like, hey, what turn do we want the game to end by, or to be threatening to end the game, or is there any types of cards that people don't want to play against? Is it okay if my deck has 2-card combos in it with no tutors to find it? That's kind of just a default for me, but like
last Rule 0 conversations I've had in the past when I've gone to FLGSs in the past year or two, we sat down and like we said, hey, these are problematic cards potentially in my deck. Is this okay? Like, is this the experience you're wanting for? It was a FNM Commander event. We were all playing for a pack. We all got a pity pack, so it wasn't like anything super crazy. But we all wanted to make sure we had a unified, fun play experience, and discussing, is this going to be a problem if I play this card or these cards, or is this something you'd be interested in playing against?
Yeah,
exactly. All right, let's move on to a very short list. Let's talk about the historical oddballs on the ban list. There's a few cards that are banned for weird reasons, or they are banned because they're kind of recent or have some weird history associated with them. First one I'm going to talk about is Iona Shield of America. I hinted at this before. This is a card that I advocate should not be banned, but I do somewhat understand the reasoning behind it. It is a big ol' angel that when it enters the battlefield, or as it enters the battlefield, you name a color, your opponents can't cast spells of the chosen color. This is, in my opinion, this is a card that it does violate one of the rules of requiring very narrow interactions, right? Monocolored players, you have to play a colorless source of removal to get rid of this thing.
Spina Bifida.
or Caracas. You know,
Oblivion Stone.
Yeah. You have to have pretty narrow answers to get rid of this card. Also, it had a very, very negative interaction with Painter Servant, which got unbanned, and this card got banned. So, you know, that's also an issue, and I can see why they did that. But at the same time, I don't think this card's that big of a problem. Most of the ways that you would cheat this thing into play are pretty, like, there's lots of narrow paths and easy enough ways to interact with it. If you're reanimating it, easy. If it's Kalia deck swinging in, just kill Kalia and don't let her swing, right? I know, play removal 5-head, but at the same time, when we're dealing with a, 8 mana threat or something, like...
Is it 9 mana? I think it's 9.
Yeah, it's 8 or 9 mana. It's so hard to get this thing into play, especially because you're just not casting it. And you have to be playing reanimation effects or big ways of cheating into play where it will stay in play. Because you can't just sneak attack this thing and everything be fine.
Yeah, I think Iona... I don't know. If you're following the format philosophy, this makes perfect sense. My first ever Commander game that I played in, I was borrowing someone's deck, and guess what? It was mono white, and someone resolved Iona. And guess what color they named? And it just was not a great experience, or especially for an introduction to the format. And so I can understand why it would be on the ban list. I agree with you that there's probably a home for it, but I would probably prefer to not play in that pod if I'm relying on like monocolored decks, you know?
Yeah.
So that has to be a discussion if it were unbanned of like, hey, I've got Iona in my deck. Are you bringing a monocolored deck to the table? Because if you play it, and you probably could speak to this, if you're playing it and it's, you're playing 3 color, that's usually where I like to be. And you're targeting 1 color in the deck, what you're just saying is you can keep playing, but I'm targeting one area in your deck, not all. But shutting down someone's complete deck is asking for feel bads.
Absolutely. Yeah. But, agency on the player who's playing Iona, you can name the color that doesn't shut down the monocolor deck.
You really got to have good friends.
Right. This is one of those Rule Zero kind of how this card can be abused versus how it is played, and, well, how it is just casually abused at times, right?
Yeah.
I still think that Iona is, generally speaking, fine, but I do completely understand why some people like it banned. But what makes this card an oddball is this card was legal in the format for almost 10 years before it got banned. So we went
after 10 years, what made it banned?
They unbanned Painter Servant, so they banned it.
Oh, okay.
Basically, people were complaining about Iona and don't like I understand the people that don't like Iona. I still don't think that it's the correct card to put in most decks. So, power level perspective as well. But Painter Servant does have such a negative perspective, and they did unban Painter Servant because it does some unique things. But I don't necessarily believe that you can, Painter Servant and Iona can't exist in the same environment. I think you can have those exist in the same environment. But, yeah. That's probably the main reason.
Yeah. Do you agree with the unbanning of Painter Servant?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to imagine why that would be on the list in general, but...
Oh, because it broke rules of Commander, and you're only allowed to play X colors in your deck.
That's pretty funny, though.
Yeah, that is why Painter Servant was banned. It went against the philosophy of the format by the colors of cards in your deck as a result.
They were thinking deep when they when they put that card on the list.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. All right, let's go to the next card here. Flash.
Just foreshadowed from like an hour ago.
So Flash is a 2-mana instant in blue that what it does is you can put a creature from your hand into play, and unless you pay its casting cost -2, you immediately sacrifice that creature. The interaction is with Protean Hulk, which is a 7-mana creature that when it dies, you search your deck for 6 mana value of creatures and put them into play. Usually you can just assemble a 2 or 3 card combo that instantly wins the game off of a Protean Hulk, and you just need to have the card Flash and Protean Hulk in your opening hand to win on turn 2.
If not earlier. You could win on turn 0 technically if you had Elvish Spirit Guide, Ascending Spirit Guide, Manamorphose, Flash, and Protean Hulk.
Yeah. You
If you have a God Hand, you can win on turn 0 on someone's upkeep.
Mm-hmm.
Which is hilarious.
Yes. That not going to happen, but it could.
It could.
But here's the thing, though. Flash was legal in Commander for almost its entire history. This is one of the most recent bans in the format. I think it's been banned for 3 or 4 years now, I think.
Has it really been that long?
Oh, yeah, it's been that long. And
where's my time going?
So, Flash was not a problem until they unbanned Protean Hulk. Then it became a problem, but the Commander RC specifically banned Flash because of how it was interacting in CEDH, which they clearly stated in the announcement that this was banned for CEDH. This is a one-time deal. We're doing this to make CEDH specifically a better play environment because according to CEDH, you ban this one card, the whole format improves drastically, which is true. Yeah. Flash Hulk decks were tier 0. And it doesn't help that Thassa's Oracle was printed as well at around the same time, which just made Flash Hulk decks that much easier. Because you could get Spellseeker and Thassa's Oracle and one other 1-mana creature, whatever you wanted, and the Spellseeker will go get you the Demonic Consultation. So oftentimes the other card you played was Blood Pet.
That's gross.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there you go.
For it.
An gross. Easy pod. You just have to be in Sultai colors. Woo, win the game.
Yeah. So it definitely was not banned for casting Flash, putting in Protean Gear Hulk, getting Torrential Gear Hulk, recasting Flash.
No, we're not doing Torrential Gear Hulk nonsense here.
I'm just saying. That's what I would be doing.
Well, you're a special breed, Mr. Seth.
All right. Then we have Hull Breacher, which, if you've never had the displeasure of playing against Hull Breacher, good for you. Hull Breacher is a 3-mana flash pirate merfolk, and if your opponent would draw a card other than the first card they draw during their draw step, you, the player who controls Hull Breacher, instead make a treasure. Deny them the draw, make mana. Hi, welcome to Wheel of Fortune.
It's a better Leovold, right?
Yeah,
yes.
It's way better than Leovold.
Way.
And it's in any blue deck at instant speed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this card was just unfun to play against. The thing that makes it kind of weird is how long it lasted in the format.
Mm-hmm.
Because, this card
It
was...
lasted too long.
Yeah, this card was, printed for Commander, right? This was in Commander Legends. And it lasted in the format, I think, 4 months? 3 or 4 months, right?
With Leovold already being banned.
Yeah, Leovold long gone.
Was it only that long?
It wasn't too long.
I thought it was, over a... Maybe.
Maybe. I'll have to check that data. But
you
it
keep
was...
talking. Let me Google.
Yeah. So Protean Hulk lasted in the format longer than I would expect. Also, this is another one of those situations where the RC kind of got to look at cards ahead of time. So, I'm surprised that they felt that this was an appropriate stacks piece to, or at least stay in the format as long as it did. Because all the way from casual to competitive, this card was not fun. One of the very core tenets of how Commander functions is a lot of decks are very, very heavily reliant on card advantage, especially if they're not playing tutors. So this is just a blue stacks piece that gets to shut down everyone else and give you mana in the process. That's a huge resource disparage.
Oh, yeah.
Released November 20th, 2020. Banned July 12th, 2021.
Oh, it almost got
Wow.
9. It was July, so it got 9
It was
months?
eight months-ish
Yeah.
out.
Wow.
Which
Yeah, sorry.
felt
Much
like
longer than
eternity.
I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
It lasted that long. That's weird to me.
They were kind of iffy on it because it was printed in a Commander product. I think is what it was because it was still being printed and it's still a popular product at the time. They didn't want the issue of people cracking one pack and being told, "Oh, you can't play that card." I think that was the reason why they kind of stated that because it was such a new card and printed in a Commander-focused product, they didn't want to have that issue for some players.
Which is... Yeah, but at the same time, Day Zero banned Lutri.
But that wasn't a standard product, not a commander-focused product.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I don't know. The logic seems a little inconsistent to me. That's what just makes it a historically interesting ban.
Do you now? I just want to ask, in general opinion, if no one at the table is playing Wills, including a Hole Breacher player, do you think the card is still too powerful? I mean, I approve of the ban. I'm not asking for that, but do you think power level that it's a problem even outside of that?
Does it give fun gameplay experience for the table? All it does is say you cast a brainstorm to try to sculpt your hand potentially. Oh, and you're down 3 cards now, and I have 3 mana now.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't. There's no balance. Like Notion Thief is the most direct comparison, right?
Yeah,
right.
Of like power level because it does a very similar thing.
Very similar.
They're very similar, but like the color restriction, the higher mana cost, and the 1 toughness compared to 2 toughness make it much weaker.
Yeah. Also, relevant creature types as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is around. Pirates is now a semi-relevant creature type. Merfolk is still not that relevant of a creature type in Commander. It is relevant, but not that relevant. Human and Rogue are significantly more relevant creature types. But again, putting this in a Dimir deck where you end at 4 mana makes way more sense to me than having this at 3 mana in every blue deck.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not. I have no problem with attacking extra draws, especially with the prevalence of like Mystic Remora, Propaganda, and all these other like what's the mono white one?
Propaganda.
I always call it Propaganda. It's Ristic Study. I'll always do that. Ristic Study. Yeah, all those card draw engines like that are also not in blue though. I'm like, okay, you get to target that aspect, but yeah, with Wheels, it's definitely a problem. Which are in the
but I will say that mass card draw is by design with Commander. Like, it's very intentional, and you're looking at like red card advantage nowadays with how they're getting more and more cards that let you impulsive draw. Right? We've had multiple new commanders that are 4-drops that just like impulsive draw you every turn or do something or reward you for impulsive drawing and stuff like that. It's very clear that card advantage is being pushed as something that should be done specifically in Commander. Hole Breacher really goes against that intentional design as well.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that said as well, Narset Parter Avails, underplayed.
I would concur with that.
Isn't she the one where everyone just plays Super Friends?
No. You're talking about Light Master.
You're right.
Parter Avails is the 1 and 2 blue Planeswalker from World of Spark. That says your opponents can't draw more than 1 card each turn.
Yep.
And then -2 to Impulse?
Basically.
Top 4?
It's look at top 4. You can pick a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into hand. 5 loyalty starting out. So this is an enchantment, basically, that sits in play and says your opponents can only draw 1 card each turn. Or 1 card each turn. Doesn't stop them from drawing the first card they get from Ristic Study. Doesn't stop... It doesn't stop a lot of the card draw, but it does stop a lot of the card draw.
Right.
It makes a wheel let them draw 1, you draw 7.
That's a lot of play in Legacy, actually.
Yeah, it still does.
Yeah.
All right. And one last thing, which is not a singular card, but a group of cards. Seth, you mentioned we talked about this a little bit before in preparation for this. You were unaware that there used to be a separate ban list for Commander, which was legendary creatures that could not be your commander. They were banned as Commander.
That's an interesting concept that they could be in the format, but not as your commander.
Mm-hmm. There were 4 cards that were on that list. It was Braid's Cabal Minion, Rafello's Llanowar something, Arayo Saratami Ascetic, and Kokusho. One of these is not like the other.
One of those cards is not that powerful.
Correct. But these cards were banned as Commander. Braids because the consistent play experience of powering out of Braids and then everyone's stuck in the abyss forever was not particularly fun. People didn't like it. Rafellos because it just created too much mana advantage early on. Wouldn't be allowed. If you want to hit Primeval Titan on turn 3, Rafellos is your guy to make it happen. And then Arayo... Okay, of all of these commanders, I remember when Arayo got banned,
Counter everything.deck.
fuck that deck. Fuck Arayo decks, man. I had to play against an Arayo that flipped on turn 1.
Oh god. Isn't it 4 spells you have to cast to flip it?
Yeah, you have to cast your 4th spell. Granted, Arayo can count herself as one of the spells, so you just go, oh, hey, Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Arayo, cantrip. Or whatever, right? And there you go. You have flipped Arayo on turn 1. That game, only 2 spells resolved.
Yeah.
That whole game, before we just scooped it.
Peak commander right there.
Yeah, like, no, Arayo absolutely deserves to be just hard banned. And it is worth mentioning, of the cards on this list, Braids, Orfellos, and Arayo are still banned. Kokusho got unbanned.
Yeah.
And we love you, Gavin. You play with us regularly. Kokusho's not that scary of a commander, though. And it's not scary in the 99 either.
Do y'all, I guess, do y'all support the singular ban list, or did y'all like the idea of the banned as commander?
Oh, I loved banned as commander.
Really?
The list was so short, it was easy to remember. And there's a lot, it'd be really good for the health of the format to say, you can still play this card, it's just banned as your commander. For all the people who are like, I just want to play with my cool card, cool. Well, just don't play it as your commander. You can still play it.
Yeah.
I think the argument is confusing for some players. Hey, now. I think that should be banned no matter what, personally. But
I disagree. I think Leovold is the prime example of card that should be banned as commander, but legal in the 99.
I love you, Jason.
Say what the fuck now?
Leovold's very powerful, don't get me wrong.
I get that, you're already in 3 colors at that point. You're going to play Sultai, so it's restricted on what decks can play it, but, you're in green. How easy is it to just cheat out a 3-drop? Green's on the Court of Calling. Invasion of Ikoria. That's a new one. There's so many ways to tutor out a green creature in that I feel like you can just homogenize the format for anything that's in Sultai Plus to just have a Leovold strategy that just shuts down opponents' game plans.
Yeah, but not everyone's going to do it. Leovold's good, don't get me wrong, and I think it's a card, I don't think every deck's going to want to play.
Where's the benefit to having it in the format? Tell me that right now.
Well, the benefit to having it in the format is to be able to play Sultai mid-rangey control decks.
Yes.
And more so Staxy decks in Sultai, which we just don't really have much of an option for right now. And Sultai is really powerful. We don't need to make Sultai better. I understand that. But at the same time, you pair it in conjunction with other changes to the format that I think should be made, it makes perfect sense. But, this is in my world of, if you let me change some things, we'll talk about this a little bit better. Yeah. We'll talk about it more, right? But for the most part, I don't think Leovold is a broken card. And it's also one of the huge benefits of when it's not your commander and how you, Leovold is broken as your commander. It is not broken just in the deck.
I also want to say this. We're gonna have to revisit this because I have I have strong opinions on Leovold, especially in regards to Rule 0. So the Leovold discussion has not ended. So you might want to table some of your opinions.
We will table it then.
Okay. But yeah, beyond that, it's just interesting. We have 3 cards on the ban list that are banned because they were banned as commanders, but they were in the format still. Yeah. You could play Braids.
It's an interesting concept to have banned as commander. It is probably just it's much more simple to just have one list. It's probably a lot easier to manage and to not have to think of cards differently. It's oh wait, now we have to evaluate card just as a commander or just as, where they could just be hey man, this is a problem, let's put it on the list. Yeah. So I get them getting rid of that, but very cool.
Well, I think that wraps everything up that we want to talk about. So thank you all very much for watching another episode of the Wrinkly Brain Podcast. If you like seeing edited EDH gameplay videos, you check out our main channel, SmoothBrainEDH. We upload a new video every Saturday. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Give us a comment and let us know what you think. Any feedback for us, we'd love to see it. If you'd like to talk to us directly, feel free to join our Discord. If you're interested in supporting us financially, check out our Patreon. Our links are directly in the description or in our link tree. This has been Ethan, Jason, and Seth. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Have a great day.